Picture this. You're standing on a balcony on the 40th floor, looking out over the neon-lit skyline of Ho Chi Minh City. The energy is electric. Millions of motorbikes weaving through the streets below, glass skyscrapers reflecting the sunset. You take a sip of your coffee and think, I want a piece of this. I want to own a slice of this booming dragon economy. But then the reality check hits. Can you, as a foreigner, actually own a piece of Vietnam?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or perhaps the billion-dong question. People see the explosive growth here in 2026 and they want in. But the legal landscape has always felt like a labyrinth wrapped in a riddle. The good news is, with the dust finally settling on the 2024 land law and the 2023 housing law, the fog is lifting. We finally have a clear roadmap, but it's not as simple as just handing over a suitcase of cash and getting the keys to a house.
Right, which is exactly why we need to unpack this today. Because the stakes are incredibly high. We're not just talking about buying a vacation home, we're talking about navigating a system that fundamentally views land and ownership differently than the West. So let's cut right to the chase. If I'm an expat, or an investor sitting in New York or London right now, can I buy property in Vietnam today?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, but with some very specific non-negotiable strings attached. You can't just wander into a charming local neighborhood in Hanoi, point at a traditional, narrow tube house that a family has lived in for generations, and make an offer. That door is firmly closed.
So what door is open?
The commercial door. As a foreigner, you are strictly limited to buying apartments or houses that are part of official, government-approved commercial projects. Think luxury condos, master-planned, gated communities, that sort of thing. But even within those glittering new towers, there is a hard ceiling. It's known as the 30% rule.
Ah, the infamous 30% quota. I've heard horror stories about people trying to buy into a building only to find out the quota was full. How exactly does that work in practice?
Think of it like a highly exclusive VIP section in a club. The developer can only sell a maximum of 30% of the total units in any single apartment building to foreigners. Once that threshold is hit, the velvet rope goes up. You could offer double the asking price, and legally, they cannot sell you a unit. You'd have to buy from another foreigner who already owns one of those quota units.
Which obviously creates a fascinating micro-market. I imagine those foreign quota units trade at a premium compared to the exact same units owned by locals.
Absolutely. It creates a parallel economy within the same building, and it brings up a really interesting social dynamic. The government wants foreign capital, they want the investment, but they are fiercely protective of their own citizens being priced out of their own cities. It's a delicate balancing act between welcoming global wealth and preserving local sovereignty. Speaking of sovereignty, there's another massive restriction we can't ignore.
You mean the national security zones?
Spot on. You might find the most breathtaking coastal project in Da Nang, or a stunning mountain retreat. But if the Ministry of Defense designates that area as sensitive for national defense or security, foreigners are entirely locked out. And that list of restricted areas isn't always published on a giant billboard. It requires serious due diligence before you even think about signing a contract.
That makes sense. Every nation guards its strategic assets. But let's dive into the concept of ownership itself, because this is where Western buyers usually experience a bit of culture shock. When I buy a condo in that approved commercial project, and I make it into the 30% quota, do I actually own it forever? Can I pass it down to my great-grandchildren?
This is where we have to redefine the word ownership. For foreign individuals, ownership is not infinite. You are essentially buying a 50-year term. You are put on a ticking clock the moment you sign the papers.
50 years. To someone used to freehold property, that sounds suspiciously like a long-term rental disguised as a purchase. Is it really an investment if it expires?
It's a fair critique. But let's look at the reality of modern real estate. How many people actually hold on to a luxury condo for half a century? Very few. And here is the silver lining. Under the current framework, you can generally apply for a one-time extension for another 50 years. So realistically, you are looking at a century of control over that asset.
100 years is a different story. That covers a lifetime and then some.
Exactly. But it does force you to think philosophically about what property really is. Are we ever truly owners of the earth, or are we just leasing space for the brief time we are here? Vietnam's legal framework essentially codifies that transient nature of ownership. You don't own the land. The land belongs to the people, administered by the state. You just own the right to use what's built on it for a specific period.
That's a profound shift in perspective. It strips away that deeply ingrained capitalist idea of perpetual ownership. But wait, this 50-year rule doesn't apply to everyone with a foreign passport now, does it? Because the recent laws introduced a massive plot twist for a specific group of people.
The biggest plot twist in modern Vietnamese real estate history. We are talking about the 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗬𝗖, the Overseas Vietnamese. If you hold a Vietnamese passport, or if you can legally prove your Vietnamese origin, even if you've lived in California, Paris, or Sydney your entire life, the game has completely changed for you.
The door hasn't just opened, it's been taken off its hinges.
Precisely. Under the new regulations, Overseas Vietnamese now enjoy almost the exact same rights as local citizens. That means long-term, freehold ownership, no 50-year ticking clock, no strict 30% quotas locking them out of neighborhoods. They can buy land, they can buy traditional houses, they can build wealth across generations just like a local resident.
That is staggering when you think about the economic implications. It's a brilliant strategic move by the government, really. They are actively incentivizing the diaspora, bringing that massive wave of generational wealth, talent, and emotional connection back to the motherland.
It's a homecoming, but capitalized. Think about the families who left decades ago, starting over with nothing, and now their children and grandchildren are returning as powerful investors. It's reshaping the property market entirely. Developers are now aggressively targeting the 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗬𝗖 demographic because they are the ultimate bridge. They have foreign capital, but local legal privileges. It makes you wonder, how will this influx of returning wealth change the social fabric of these cities over the next decade?
It's bound to drive up prices in those traditional neighborhoods, for one. Which brings us back to the expats who don't have Vietnamese heritage. Let's say the 50-year limit, the 30% quota, and the premium prices just sound like too much friction. What is the alternative? Is long-term leasing a viable workaround?
It is, and it's becoming increasingly popular. Many developers who have maxed out at their foreign quota will offer a 50-year lease agreement. To the naked eye, it feels exactly like owning. You can decorate, you can live there, you can often sublet it, but legally, it is a long-term rental contract.
That sounds a lot less stressful, but I imagine there are still bureaucratic hoops to jump through. You can't just shake hands and move in.
Definitely not. The paperwork has to be ironclad. First, you have to ensure the landlord or developer is actually legally permitted to rent to foreigners. Not everyone is. Then there's the administrative side. They have to register your presence with the local police, and there is a 10% rental tax that it needs to be accounted for.
And let me guess, having your own paperwork in order is crucial here.
Absolutely critical. Do not even think about navigating this without a temporary residence card. Having that card makes the entire process of signing contracts, setting up bank accounts, and dealing with local authorities exponentially smoother. It proves you are part of the system, not just a tourist passing through.
It really sounds like the Wild West days of emerging markets are over. The framework in 2026 is highly structured, very deliberate, and completely transparent if you take the time to read the rules. The risks are significantly lower than they were a decade ago, provided you play by the book.
That's the perfect way to frame it. The market has matured. The laws are no longer gray. They are black and white. The 30% rule, the 50-year limit, the 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗬𝗖𝗓 exception, These are the pillars of the new reality. It requires a strategic mindset. You aren't just buying bricks and mortar, you are buying into a highly regulated ecosystem.
Which is why verifying that foreign quota before you sign a single document is the golden rule. It's been a fascinating journey unpacking this. We've gone from the neon skyline of Saigon to the philosophical roots of land ownership and the powerful economic homecoming of the diaspora. It really makes you question what it means to put down roots in a foreign land.
It does. It challenges our assumptions about permanence. Whether you are holding a 50-year lease or reclaiming a piece of your ancestral homeland, buying property here is as much an emotional investment as it is a financial one. The dragon economy is moving fast, and it's up to the investor to keep pace with its rhythm.
A rhythm that is constantly evolving. Thank you for tuning in to this deep dive. If this conversation helped clear the fog around the Vietnamese property market, make sure to follow the show. Next time, we're going to look at the other side of the coin, the hidden costs, taxes and fees of actually closing a property deal in Hanoi. You won't want to miss it. Until then, keep questioning and keep exploring.